Hello, survivors, and welcome to the State of Decay 2 stream. I'm your host, Geoffrey, and we are here today to talk about the past and the future of State of Decay 2. We're coming right up on the 4th anniversary of the release of State of Decay 2, which is a really exciting moment for all of us because it means that we've spent almost as much time developing this game after release as we spent before release, which is a really kind of unusual situation to get into for a lot of us. And so this is a lot of fun for us. Hopefully we can make it fun for you too. So I've brought along some of my colleagues of Lethal Cunning. We've got Brant Fitzgerald here, the art director of State of Decay 2. How you doing, Brant?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show today.
And I'm not going to... Brant created this show much more than I did, but here we go. Joe Swarner is also here. How you doing, Joe?
I'm having a great day. Thanks, Geoffrey.
So this is going to be a little bit of a chill stream. We're going to spend most of our time with just me and Joe tootling around in State of Decay 2, trying to destroy plague hearts and infestations while answering viewer questions, which is going to be a fun challenge. Brant is going to be the one who's actually a little bit more focused on what the audience is saying, so that he can help us out without getting as distracted. But first, before we do that, let's talk about the roadmap for this summer. So we have been announcing features like crazy this year. We've been announcing features like our update to infestations and hordes and sieges and how they work. We've announced the Forever Communities update, which is going to give you access to the legacy pool in the middle of the gameplay, with a bunch of quality of life improvements to the supply locker and a ton of stuff. Like, people have been, getting so many ideas from us of things that are going to go into the game without getting any times or dates. And so I keep getting all of this feedback. People, ask me questions on Twitter and on my personal stream. When are you going to tell us when these updates are coming out? So we don't have all of the answers yet, but we have some. And so we figured we'd take a little bit of time telling you what we know so far about what's coming in the near future. So first off, this month, in May, we're getting Hotfix 29.2. That is a small quality of life hotfix. It's not bringing any big new features in, but we realized that, especially since this is the anniversary, we're going to be celebrating, we're probably going to get a fair number of new players in, and so we wanted to do some quality of life fixes for those new players coming in to make sure they have the best experience we can give them with State of Decay 2. But also in May, for those of you who've been playing the game for a long time, we're doing an update to the public test realm, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a branch of our game that you can get access to via Steam, where you can play an in-progress version of our game that's got a lot of the newer features being worked on. This is a great way for us to get feedback from the audiences, so we really appreciate everybody who's been participating in the PTR. So, the Infestations update has been in the PTR for a really long time. This month, we're going to add Forever Communities to the PTR. So you can start moving characters in and out of your legacy pool. You can start trying out a lot of the other new features like in the supply locker. And you can give us feedback on it, see how it's working, and let us know if there's stuff we need to fix before it goes formally into release. Then later on in July, that's when we're actually going to issue Update 30, and that's going to contain Forever Communities. And so that's when everybody across our entire audience, no matter where or how they play, is going to be able to benefit from Forever Communities, from all the legacy, stuff. I keep listing what it is. You know what's in Forever Communities. And if you're not sure, you can watch back our previous streams. You go over to YouTube, look at our previous videos, and see what we're talking about there, because there's a lot of really good stuff in Forever Communities. And then finally, we do not have a month for this, but Update 31, which is going to contain infestations and hordes and sieges, all of those updates that we've been working on, that's coming on later in the year. It might make this summer or it might not. We've actually still got some open questions in our own heads about that. And so I'm sure that a lot of you are probably wondering, hey, this infestations feature, of the features on this list, that's the first one you guys announced. Why is it the last one on the list? And it's because we put it into the public test realm and we got so much valuable feedback from the audience. And so, because this is a major change to the game, like all of the dynamics between you and the plague hearts and the zombies and how you're competing with each other on the map, all of this stuff is being changed in a really major way. And it's difficult to make a change like that because it has, tons of implications, lots of little bugs you have to solve in response to the big bugs, that sort of thing. And so, putting it out in the public test realm was critical for us to do really early because we needed to see how lots of players were interacting with this feature and what problems they were running into and what, qualitative feedback they had about how well the feature was going. And so we've been listening to that stuff. And so we've been basically taking our time, really digging into it and making sure that that we're making this the best version of the feature that it can be before we release it. So we're really grateful to everybody who got into the PTR and helped us out. And so eventually, I promise, you are actually going to get this update to hordes and infestations and sieges. You're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for that one. But hopefully you can enjoy Forever Communities in the meantime and the benefits of Hotfix 29.2. Speaking of Hotfix 29.2, so this month we're going to be releasing a new hotfix. It's 29.2, the second hotfix we've done since update 29, and it's got some quality of life improvements in it that are mostly aimed at just making the game a little bit more comfortable and reasonable for a lot of the new players who are probably going to be joining the game as we, do our anniversary celebrations this year. So the first one is there's a feral mission called A Threat to Our Safety, where you're supposed to kill a feral, and it was blocked because sometimes the feral just wouldn't spawn. So we fixed that problem, that particular mission. If you had trouble with it, hopefully after Hotfix 29.2, the problems will go away. Another very minor thing, we accidentally left one of our designers off the credits in the Homecoming update, which was big mistake on our part. We're sorry about that. Geoff Tuffley was the designer who was in charge of the discoveries, all of the just little locations scattered around Trumbull Valley where you could find not just an item, but an item with a little piece of story surrounding it. Some of the items that led into some of Mickey's missions, for instance, or some of the items that were some of the locations where you could find rare weapons and stuff. A lot of that stuff was all set up by Geoff Tuffley. And he was a contractor. He joined our team for a little while, gave us the benefit of his skill and expertise, and then ran off to do other things. And because of that, we forgot to put him in the credits. And so now we've remembered Geoff Tuffley gets credit, and he also gets like a 2-minute segment on this stream of me telling everyone how great he was and what he contributed. His work eventually grew into, Joe Swarner actually picked up where Geoff left off, learned from him how to make discoveries, and that's what allowed him to fix the shots in the dark achievement over in Heartland. And so Geoff, has had a major influence on how the game has gone, and so we really wanted to make sure that he got credit for it. The Lundegard Lumber Mill, which is one of the bases in Providence Ridge, it had a different name in every part of the UI for a long time. Some places it was called Lundegard, some places it was just called Lumber Mill, sometimes it was called weird stuff. And so we went through and we corrected all of those places, so it's actually called the Lundegard Lumber Mill everywhere that you might look for it in the UI. Again, minor quality of life fix, but it should help people be able to communicate about the game, when they're talking about Providence Ridge. And finally, we've been getting a lot of reports from the audience that there was missing VO, particularly in Trumbull Valley, but also in other parts of the game. There were just several VO lines coming from various characters in particular that just were never played. And so you knew it was really clear that they should be there and that they weren't showing up. And so we went through and we found a lot of those and we cleaned them up. And so hopefully those VO lines should be playing reliably and well in Hotfix 29.2. And that's it. That's Hotfix 29.2. So not a huge list of features. It's not like we're dropping a bomb right in the middle of the game or anything like that. But, some quality of life fixes leading up to the point where we're ready to drop in something bigger like Forever Communities. Okay. Well, guys, that was our official presentation. But now it's time to do something else. Wait, Joe, where did you go? Where's Joe? Is he waiting in the car? Where is he? Oh,
I'm up here.
Wait. Oh, you're up. Oh, you're up here. Hello, Joe.
This is the best place to hide in the barricaded strip mall.
Oh, that's true. Well, let's start our adventure up here together. Let me just sort of try to get both of our faces on screen here. It's kind of dark, but that's okay. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. That's actually very helpful. Let's get a beautiful shot here of me and Joe being buddies. Okay. Anyway. All right, so we've got a Q&A session planned here. Actually, so Heather, our social media manager, went through and solicited questions from our audience. And so Joe and I thought it might be kind of fun to answer some of those questions, with Brant's help, of course, while we're running around in the world trying to kill infestations. So, Joe, I was thinking of just hitting these ones first that are close to the base. Does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay, cool. We're eventually going to try to work our way all the way down to a spot where I want to claim a medical tent as an outpost. But before we do that, we're going to deal with some infestations. But while we're dealing with these wait a minute. You got to open the door before you set... No, you don't. What? The fire goes straight through the door? What in the world was that? Joe, you crazy man.
You haven't, you never knew that, Geoffrey?
No, I did not realize. Of course, it makes sense now that you've done it. It just never, like, yeah, it seems obvious that that's how it would work. But it didn't occur to me until you actually did it.
The fuel leaks in through the cracks in the door. Come on, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Like, absolute physical sense that that's how it should be. Okay, where is this screamer? There's
He's on the other side from you.
Yeah, no. I should not have ignored that zombie. There. Got the screamer. There we go. Anybody else? It sounds like I just heard a juggernaut. Is that true? Is that real?
Yeah, he's been out here for a while.
I never saw him. Oh, there he is.
While you're
We
playing,
drove right past him to get here.
While you're playing, I'm going to answer a question from La Coalition.
Oh, please.
When is the PTR for Xbox? And never is the answer to that. Xbox architecture is not really set up for us to do our PTR in, so sorry, it's not going to happen. You can join it on Steam, though.
Yeah, oh, dang! Okay, seriously. So, Joe, I'm only playing in the Nightmare Zone. Have you brought a bit of lethal with you? Like, what's going on? I mean, obviously no, because this is a regular feral. I'm seriously gonna lose a character right now. What is going on?
All right, don't run away from me, Geoffrey.
I have to. I have to run away from you. Oh, come on.
This is quality entertainment,
This
though.
really is. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm all out of help. I'm out of everything. Dude, I think we have to go home.
That's fine. It's like, you could walk there.
Yeah, I guess I could. I mean, we've got a Haven device.
And it's literally right across the road.
So I was sitting here thinking, oh yeah, this is just infestations. It's not like it's plague hearts or something.
I'm feeling maybe I should run over and start my machine and jump in.
Yeah.
Because that would help.
Okay, you just didn't get in the car, so are you fine?
That's fine. I'm fine.
Are you okay? All right,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna park over here. I actually meant to switch characters before we played anyway, so it's fine. Let me just...
Here's a good question from Brian Menard.
Yes.
Will the PTR update in May for Forever Communities still also contain the infestation update?
As I understand it, I don't think we're taking anything out of the PTR, though you might know better than I do, you guys.
No, we will not. We will not be taking the infestations out. So the PTR will be the first place where you get to see the infestations interacting with Forever Communities. But that said, we're not adding anything new to infestations for the foreseeable future on the PTR. Like, we're still working on some things. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
As far as I probably can go.
So now that I'm not being eaten by 1,000 ferals, let me actually quote one of the questions that we actually got from our original exploration. So Keith Refusal of the Call asked us, why isn't the zombie pandemic explained in the game? How did the zombies act like a hive mind? Is it a parasite, a bacteria, a virus? How did it take over Washington State and presumably the rest of the world? Does anyone at the lab know the answers to these things?
Oh.
Go for it. Go for it, Joe.
Okay, the answer is yes. Pretty much everyone who's read the documents at the lab knows the answer. The reason that we will never tell you, though, is because it's not really an important central tenet, right? Of the fiction that we have, right? Like, the zombie apocalypse is the backdrop. It's not the center.
Yeah, because when you're telling sort of a disaster story like this about, some horrible thing destroying the world, a lot of the time what you're, if you know where it came from, you kind of get the sense that the story should be about solving it. The story should be about, like, oh, we know what this came from, and so therefore our goal is to find a cure. And that's not the story we want to tell. We don't want to tell the story of finding the cure. We want to tell the story of surviving the aftermath. And so that has a very different set of implications. So, okay, I think there is a screamer on the far corner.
Well, and also, once you put the science to it, then people can start picking apart your science, right? Like the if it was a virus, then you know there'd be ways to cure it. If it's a
if it's a
parasite,
bacterium, that means something else. And yeah.
Exactly. So
and if we had any like magical technology or magical weird bio stuff that we imagine might happen, as soon as the people who actually know how that kind of stuff works, people who know how genetics work, people who know how pathogens work, would immediately be kicked out of the story as soon as we start telling them what we think is going on.
Exactly. We didn't want to defend something that doesn't exist anyways. So, and like Joe said, it's not the point of the game.
Yeah, so, exactly.
And if you think about like zombie movies and all of that stuff, like the best zombie movies never really explain themselves, right? Like they're just like zombies happened.
Yeah, they give you enough to let you know the mechanics of the world. It's like you know, 28 Days Later, they talk about the rage virus, and they talk about how it's something that just amplifies rage in the human mind. And that tells you something, that implies something about how you should expect those zombies to behave. That's one of the reasons why they're fast, resilient zombies. They're not dead bodies, they're people infected with rage. And so that they give you just enough to tell you, to let you sort of anticipate how it should work, without telling you stuff that makes you doubt the story. It sort of throws you out of the story.
Two things. Plague Bag said it's not midichlorian count, and that'll get you a ban. And then Adam Survives actually came up with the closest answer. Dantron Industries released it.
So it is actually kind of funny because we put all those like at the airplane. We put all those like little Dantron things. I've noticed people like La Coalición, for instance, put together a video of all of the different comments people can make when they encounter the Dantron discovery that I believe Jeff Tuffley set up. And a lot of them kind of do, you know, because we put so much effort into that Easter egg, it's easy for them to assume that means it must be integral into into the story of the zombie plague, and it must have come from Dantron. And we're not really trying to imply that, though. If you want to make that guess, go ahead. The thing is, whenever we don't answer a question explicitly, there's nothing wrong with you making up your favorite answer. And actually, the fact that we're not filling in the blanks means that it's an opportunity for you to come up with a solution that you think that makes the most sense to you, that you find most compelling, and we're not going to tell you you're wrong, because we have no interest in doing that. So go for it. Think whatever you want.
Geoffrey,
am I in the seat? I didn't mean to get in the driver's seat.
Oh, no, that's no problem. And I often think back to something you said early on and right after launch, Geoffrey, was that like State of Decay 2 and really State of Decay in general was always about writing your own story. And State of Decay, like, we don't know whether or not Marcus or Maya or Ed or any of those folks survived in any one individual's game. And we didn't want to tear that away from them, because if in their game, those characters had died, then that's not necessarily continuing their story. And I think that's a big part of, we end up in general. Yeah, we end up with just wanting to tell a very broad story where we're not getting into the details of lots of historical figures in their lives and exactly what they did or did not do. We're usually trying to tell a broader story about, we're creating a vibe, we're creating a world, and then letting you sort of tell your own story within it. Which means we don't want to make it all about the stuff that we wrote. We want it to be mostly about the stuff that you created. So while we're on the way to this next infestation, next question on my list is from Story of the YR2. They asked, what was the most difficult part of going from a smaller, simpler game in State of Decay to a much bigger and more diverse game in State of Decay 2? So for me, actually, State of Decay 2, it turns out, is not actually that much more complex than State of Decay 1. The thing that impressed me is that, when I joined the State of Decay team, it was right after State of Decay 1 was released, and State of Decay 1 was a shockingly complex game for a team of only a couple of dozen people to have put together. So we kind of, those of us who were working on State of Decay 2,
were basically building on the shoulders of giants. We had so much. Actually, a lot of places where we kind of took shortcuts to make State of Decay 2 was basically just saying, hey, why don't we do it like State of Decay 1? Because that worked. And it was a miracle it worked. And we should, rather than questioning that and trying to redo it, let's just do what worked. And so that was actually part of the solution that we had for a lot of this stuff was, in places where we had any doubt, we're like, oh, how should bases work in State of Decay 2? We went through a lot of different ideas about that, but eventually we landed on, you know what? They could work like the bases in State of Decay 1, and I don't think anybody would complain. And that's kind of what we did. We added some complexity to it, but only a thin layer of complexity on top of what already worked. And so, yeah, so it helps when you already have a really great game to build on top of, which I can say because I didn't work on State of Decay 1. I worked on the expansion packs, but I didn't really work on the original game.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest impact was learning to accept and appreciate the different ideas that a lot of, like, we went from what, 22 to 50 or more in SOD2, and learning to appreciate and let go of some of the control that you had in one, because we literally, wore a dozen hats each in SOD1.
Yeah, and each of those hats that you wore was an entire hat. It's like there was one person in charge of the map layouts, and there was one person in charge of implementing combat or implementing inventory or something. But when you go bigger, like State of Decay 2, you have multiple people involved in almost every part of the game. And you have to, and that's a whole different approach to game development. You have to.
Well, and then we had to, we had to embrace the idea of production culture too, because for a long time we'd sit around and make decisions at somebody's desk and say, that sounds cool, let's do it, instead of actually having somebody coordinating whether or not we had time to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Now
you can shoot from the hip a lot better when there's a smaller number of people you got to talk to make something work.
Yeah. Well, and now that there's more people in the room, you can actually find out the implications of an idea on things other than yourself, like audio and effects, and a lot of QA people who a lot of times didn't have a seat at the table. One of the best things we've done in our development process is include everyone who will be affected now, instead of just, like you said, shooting from the hip and making decisions that will affect other people. So
yeah, and so like, even though it's certainly easier to shoot from the hip and it's easier to build a game with a smaller team, a lot of the benefits you get from having a larger, more diverse team, people with a lot of different perspectives, either from just their life experience or from what discipline they're a part of and what skills they have, you can end up making a better game. It's just harder. But you know what? Something being harder doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. And a lot of the time, even though it's difficult to go from the smaller team to a larger team and learn how to integrate so many different perspectives and needs into your process, ultimately the game that you can make from that kind of process can be a lot better because of it.
Let's see. We've got some questions I'm trying to keep up with. From Plague Bag, what part that you had a direct hand in are you most proud of to have contributed to SOD2?
Oh, I need to
Joe.
Scooch over. The thing I'm not proud of is the fact that I lost the argument over whether characters should automatically switch into the driver's seat of the car.
No. Most proud of.
Okay, sorry.
Let's see. I suppose it has to be public-facing stuff at this point, doesn't it?
I think so.
A lot of there have been a lot of things that I've contributed to the game, mostly through expertise. So the thing in terms of like my direct hand, however, it has to be the Shots in the Dark achievement. I got to tell a story that left a little to the imagination, but it helped return to some of the original plans as well for Heartland. There was supposed to be a squad that got killed. It was supposed to be Captain Logan's group, and to finally put that in a place where players could access it and interact with it, and then also finish the achievement was super awesome. Although I think my favorite thing overall was Geoffrey and I, about, was it 3.5 years ago now, started working on a prototype for legacy recruits.
Oh, right. I was about to say that, like, it's something you should be proud of is your advocacy for legacy recruits, even though it took us forever to actually act on it. The fact that you were pushing for it so long.
But the Forever Communities update is way more than I ever would have thought we would have been able to pull off, and I'm glad that we did postpone it that long, because I think it's miles above whatever that little prototype was. And so, yeah, Forever Communities.
I think that for me, you know, I often talk about the fact that the name generator is probably my favorite thing that I've ever worked on my entire career. It's, you know, it feels like a pretty small part of the game, but for me, it's just people are still having fun discovering nickname and name and trait combinations that you know that sort of send them down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out what a character's life history is that led to them having a particular nickname, and so like I put so much sort of probably an unnecessary ridiculous amount of effort into figuring out how to make that name generator work, and so the fact that I overdid it ended up sort of I don't know, having some good results, and it makes me feel happy that basically this thing that I put kind of a stupid, absurd, unnecessary amount of effort into has still resulted in people even today, you know, having, you know, enjoying that feature, including me. That's actually the fun part, is the fact that I entered a ton of nicknames into the game, and then I forgot most of them, and so I actually get to discover them like a new player myself when I play through the game, because I have no memory of anything.
All right, did we want to do this one
yeah, where is
right
this
way?
play
We want
card?
to do this the cheese way.
I don't even see
Right
the play
over here.
card.
I've got the flashlight on it.
Oh, you're over there. Oh,
So my answer to that question is, the thing I'm most proud of is I co-created the game and then haven't had to work a day in my life since. I've just been skating by on it.
all right. So Joe and I want to show off something. This is a glitch that players have uncovered that it is on our list, so don't get used to it. We're probably going to fix it at some point. But Joe has got some zombait in his inventory. He's going to throw the zombait at this plague heart, and then after the zombait is on the plague heart, every shot we take at this plague heart is going to be magnified. It's going to be repeated multiple times, and the plague heart is practically going to kill itself. It's going to be great. Go for it, Joe.
Okay, so usually on Nightmare, this would take about 40 to 50 bullets out of this gun. I'm using the Masterwork Assault Rifle that you can get from the Trumbull Valley.
Like the improvised weapon station or whatever?
Improvised weapon station. And so here we go. Apparently, it increases the impact rating. I wonder if it would do the same for others, but there we go. Zombait 1.
And you can see there's multiple hits for each of those shots that he's doing, and the plague heart is
7
just
shots.
gone. And probably, honestly, you probably could have done 2, and it probably would have worked. It just takes time. Oh, except it doesn't make the ferals go away. What the heck? It's got me in a corner. Nobody puts Dale in a corner. All right, well, okay, the game got revenge on us for the fact that we're glitching through plague hearts.
But
anyway,
the good news is we got your meds outpost ready.
Okay, yeah, that's true. So wait, is this the spot that's got the meds, or it's up here? That's where I want to grab the meds, right?
Yeah, right there.
Okay, so let's head over. I'm gonna grab this meds outpost.
I'm going to address some of the questions that have been coming up. Lots of questions about whether we're going to add a new map to SOD2. I say no. Moving on. Let's see.
So I've got another one on my list.
Okay.
So Jazzy Noop, prior to the stream, asked us, I know the engine switch was a bear to decide to do. Jazzy Noop is referring to the fact that we switched to using the Unreal Engine about halfway through development on State of Decay 2. They're saying, you know, what was the mood like when that decision was made? I know there were looks like, okay, we've got work to do. Yeah, so the time that the engine switch hit was we were right about to start prototyping the sort of the core loop of the game, like what it's like to need a resource, leave your base to go get the resource, bring the resource back, and resolve your problems. Because that is sort of the pattern that you follow when you're playing State of Decay 2. It's like you figure out you need something, you go out into the world and you get it, then you come back home and sort of refresh yourself. And so we were just about to start testing that out when we switched engines, which basically knocks you back to zero. You have to rebuild every feature that you've got up to that point, include just the basic idea of like having a map, having a character, having a base. You got to kind of, pick all that stuff up from scratch. And so it really sort of, it put us into a situation where that core gameplay loop of, whether it was fun to go out into the world, do stuff, and then bring stuff back home and enhance your base, we didn't have that working until very close to release. And so really sort of the emotional experience of switching engines was less about the moment of switching engines and more about just creating this overall sense of uncertainty about whether the game was going to even work. Because a lot of the folks, on the State of Decay 2 team were veterans who know how uncertain that sort of thing is, how you have to prove stuff out and prototype stuff out really quickly in order to have any confidence your game's going to be fun. And that has a huge impact on sort of the way that you plan out your schedule. You want to plan out first the risky things, the things that you need to see in gameplay before you can believe in them. Do those first and then fill in the blanks around them. But we couldn't do that. That core loop experience happened very, very late in development because we were just building up from scratch. And so, so the emotional experience was mostly about uncertainty. It was about just not being sure that anything we were doing was going to work until it came together. Miraculously, it did. And it came together well enough that we were able to garner an audience and keep, supporting this game for 4 years. But even now, it's like we're just now implementing the version of the legacy pool that we should have from the beginning. We're only now implementing the version of infestations and hordes and sieges that we should have had from the beginning, because everything, a lot of the stuff that you got in State of Decay 2 was kind of the first draft. And I think it kind of works and it kind of hung together, and we were very lucky that way. But man, are we going to have a better version of it, having actually spent the time, with the gameplay already working and with us in a position to work on it. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's important to note that the switch to Unreal was actually our second engine switch during the production of State of Decay 2.
That's true.
We went to Stingray, which was an awful engine that never got supported, even though they said they were going to support it. I won't go into that, but then we had to switch to Unreal, and so we basically started over twice with State of Decay 2.
Because the first State of Decay was done with the Crytek engine, right? And so it was,
Yeah, and CryEngine was, CryEngine basically got bought by Amazon, and we weren't going to use, it took them years to develop what they wanted to on that. We weren't going to use that. But every time you switch engines, you can't just copy code over. So we were starting from scratch. So that's one of the reasons why SOD2 was somewhat light on content at the beginning as well, because we lost like almost a year of development in those two engine switches. So
zombies coming.
We've caught up.
So Joe, were you up there surveying and seeing if you could find the nearby plague heart?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you know where we're headed now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're basically going to start tackling plague hearts now in the background while we ask more questions. So speaking of engines, actually, and sort of the difference that switching engines makes, we've actually got a question from someone named Nightbeard, who seems to have some, like, pre-existing negative feelings about the Unreal Engine. I'm not sure where that's coming from, and I don't think it's necessarily justified, but let me read the question and you can sort of, judge for yourself. So the question says, in the melee combat in State of Decay 2 has a good sense of impact. The animations are pretty good. Was it hard to make those in Unreal? Which kind of implies that Unreal games don't have fun melee combat. I'm not sure what the deal is there. But the thing is, I don't think it really has much to do with the engine. We were talking about this a little bit before the stream, Brant, and you were saying that that it actually has a lot more to do with how you staff your team and what you spend time on and what you don't. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
It's all about allocating memory resources, deciding where you want to spend your GPU time, right? And for us, melee is such a huge part of it and we had some really good people working on it that melee worked out for us. One thing I will say about Unreal that it wasn't prepared for us is we had to essentially write our own streaming code.
And by streaming code, you mean like streaming off the hard drive all the different parts. As you're driving at top speed through the level, the entire level isn't loaded at once. You got to stream in each chunk of the level as you're going, and that's something that Unreal is built primarily for like corridor shooters and things like that have very locked down level content.
Yep.
And we were trying to make a big open world, overland, drive any direction you want type of game, which is just, that's not a thing that it does naturally, which is fine. Each engine is built for a certain scenario initially. And these days, like a lot of the bigger engines like Unreal and Unity are doing their best to try to support as many, as huge a variety of games as they can. But you got to start somewhere. And Unreal was not necessarily prepared for something huge like this at the time that we got it.
Yeah, and they get better at it every rev. Every rev they get better at supporting all kinds of gameplay. I mean, originally the Unreal Engine should have been called the Gears of War engine, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what it was, and a decent tool set.
Wasn't it called Unreal Engine because of wasn't there like Unreal Arena or something like that?
Well,
there was an original game called Unreal. Yeah. It used to be that actually the names of engines a lot of the time were just the game that you like. If you made Unreal and then somebody just grabbed Unreal and then swapped out the content, they were using the Unreal Engine. And so a lot of engines were just named after the game that you were just starting with as your starting point.
JGL Lives asks, has the team ever considered building your own engine? No, because building let's face it, the best engine in the industry is Rockstar's, right? But they've had 15 years and thousands of programmers working on it, and literally billions of dollars to drop into it. Very few people ever have that opportunity to spend that amount of time and put that amount of.
We better go, Geoffrey.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just take that guy off. So yeah. So like, if you decide you want your company to be an engine company, that like one of the major things you're there to do is to make a fancy engine, you can do that. But that's not us. Like we're a game company, and we we're not going to spend a ton of our resources just building an engine. We want to have if we're going to hire people to our team, we want them to be game people, gameplay people. And so yeah, so we're happy to sort of to spend the money on somebody else's engine, let them be the expert in engine building, and we can be the experts in game building. Because there are a lot of really great game developers out there who are really good at engine development. They've made some really amazing stuff. But we want to be focused on the stuff that we're already good at.
Yep.
I'm just gonna throw some thermite at you. I'm sure that's okay.
That's fine.
So Vinbo Zimbo, or Vinny as I know him, asked a very important question. Can tacos be added as a stamina item? And I say no, because they would be OP.
I would say no, because you can't scavenge them, because they'd be gross after a certain amount of time.
No, I don't agree, but
you would eat a taco, a 2-year-old taco that you found in a cabinet somewhere.
A 2-year-old taco is better than any other food you can find. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
It's better than a no-year-old taco.
True.
Wait, no.
Okay,
that's
here, why
not
don't
true.
you take that feral? Oh, never mind.
I will have to add as a disclaimer that I'm not suggesting anyone go out and eat a 2-year-old taco.
Yes, we have to be responsible. We don't want to be legally liable for nonsense that other people do. So Nightbeard's question actually had a second half to it. It's not just about the melee stuff. They also said, how come so many third-person games in Unreal don't have decent jumping mechanics? Just weird hops that don't do much. And since we got no zombies around, let me show what he's talking about. He's talking about weird hops that don't do much, like this one. So there are lots of games that have weird hops that don't do much, but that actually doesn't have anything to do with the Unreal Engine. That's a genre thing. Like, so if we were making a Mario game, for example, or a platformer that's all about managing your jumps and trying to land on platforms and stuff like that, we would have spent the time, like Brant was talking about what you spent your time and effort on. We would have spent our time and effort on making really awesome, elaborate jumping mechanics. And there's a lot of games, even in this genre, that have it. Like Dying Light 2 is all about being able to jump across things and jump over things and climb up things and stuff like that. And they do a really great job of that. But that's not what our focus is. And so we just, honestly, early on in State of Decay 2's development, we were considering not having a jump at all. Because if you think about what do you use the jump for? You use the jump in our game mostly to initiate climbing over walls. That's the main thing it's for. And you could do that without a jump. You could just go and interact with a wall, climb up it, and you had got everything you need out of the jump. It's very rare that you actually run into a situation where literally jumping is the answer to the question. And you know, we've got a lot of stuff on our buttons. You know, like, we're trying to cram so many features on these buttons. It actually gets really, really uncomfortable sometimes how difficult it is to add new features to our game because we've already filled out the controller. So releasing something from the controller, taking away the jump, could actually have given us a lot of good stuff to work with. We could have put sprint, for instance, on the A button. And that would have given us some opportunities, you know? And so the fact that we have a jump at all was entirely because players have just gotten really used to having jumps on their characters. A lot of players report feeling weird if their character can't jump. Like, if they're... Oh, by the way, I'm just relying entirely on Joe to be dealing with this stuff right now. But, like, we tested out our game without a jump. We tested out State of Decay 2 without a jump. And a lot of the feedback we got from our internal playtesters was just, I feel weird if my character is bound to the ground. I feel like if I can't do this, then my character is stapled to the ground and it feels deeply uncomfortable. And so that's why there is even a jump at all in our game. But because, you know, we weren't planning on the jump being like the solution to a lot of problems. We're not trying to make Dying Light 2. We didn't make the jump this big, bouncy, Mario-like, unrealistic thing. You know, we made it just like a hop in real life, which you'll notice it in your life. In your actual life, like at home, there aren't a lot of problems that you solve by jumping. Right now, and so we made it like that. It's just it's there because you can do it and it feels good to be able to do it. It's just not important to the game, and I think that that's true of a lot of the games that get made with the Unreal Engine. A lot of them are in genres like ours where it doesn't matter. But there are plenty of games in Unreal that do take advantage of jumps. I mean, Mirror's Edge was an Unreal game, and it was the inspiration for a lot of, you know, first-person parkour games like Dying Light. They exist because Mirror's Edge existed, and that was an Unreal game. Ghost Runner is an Unreal game. Oh, thank you, Jawa, for solving all my problems for me. Ghost Runner is an Unreal game, and that's all about, you know, jumping from place to place. Solar Ash and the Gunk and the Pathless, those are all like platformy, some of them really innovative, weird platformy games that were built in Unreal and have really elaborate and funky jump mechanics. And there's even a game coming out, I think this year, called Cow the Kangaroo. KAO. It's not out yet. I don't know if its jumping mechanics are fun, but the trailer looks like it's got hops because it's a kangaroo game. So there's plenty of
kangaroo game.
There's plenty of games out there that do jumps in Unreal. Like, there's nothing about the Unreal Engine that means that you can't do jumps. It really just depends on what kinds of games you like to play and what you seek out.
So here's a good question that I don't know the answer to. I have some suspicions, but will SOD2 be playable on Steam Deck? And I think that's a business decision, right?
I think it's already playable on Steam Deck from what I've seen on Twitter. So the answer is a big resounding yes.
I hope so.
The Steam Deck, I mean, I don't think you have to typically do specific stuff to make a game work on Steam Deck because I think Steam Deck is designed to try to make it so that any PC game theoretically can work on it. Now, because you're relying on like touchpads and sort of a different control scheme, it's possible, I think, for a lot of PC games to have an uncomfortable experience on the Steam Deck. And so I'm not dead certain how easy the transition is if you feel like you might have to do, you know, like remapping of some kind or whatever to make it work for you. And I haven't explored the question of just resources, like how well the game runs in the Steam Deck. Maybe, Joe, do you know more about that than I do?
No, I didn't. I did not get one of the Steam Decks. However, it seems like it's okay. We've got people who are tweeting. So thank you, Heather, for making those visible for us. But we've got people who are tweeting about like taking lunch with the Steam Deck and just all around having a good time. So I mean,
awesome. Okay, so clearly somebody's able to do it. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't have a Steam Deck, or else I'd be able to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm debating because so many of the games that I love to play on my Switch started their lives or actually on my iPad, started their lives as PC games, and then eventually came to those platforms. And so, like, right now, I've got all the games that I want to play on those platforms, and so I'm not hugely motivated to go get a Steam Deck. But I think in another generation, if the Steam Deck is really successful, I could imagine a lot of my favorite indie games that come out in the next couple of years basically relying on the Steam Deck to be, you know, how they work as a mobile game. And so I could totally see myself, like, wanting or needing a Steam Deck once we see another generation of those indie games coming out.
Okay, we've got a question from Andra Telsey, I can't pronounce that name. Would you consider a mobile RV type of base? And sadly, no, because our bases are extremely crafted. Like a lot of work goes into making them function, and allowing you to just park it wherever would mess with our systems ridiculously. So
yeah, that would be really hard.
We certainly thought about it, and you know, the ultimate fantasy would be to be able to pick any place on our map and choose it as your base. But we had to give up on that a long time ago based on how we architected our bases and their functionality. So
yeah,
I know it's not the answer you wanted to hear, but we're sort of limited by the way we made the game in that.
Okay, I'm switching to my loud weapon. Hopefully that's not going to get us into any trouble.
Oh no, it never does.
So, Faceless Dead 137 wants to know, who on the dev team was the first to close combat solo a Juggernaut? So, it's hard to be sure who did anything first. Oh, hey, I got a bounty, sweet. Oh, gosh, I'm gonna die.
No, you're not. Where are you at?
I'm over here with this feral friend. Oh, you got him. Cool, thank you, appreciate it. So yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, very likely it was somebody from QA. I think, because you know they're the folks who try all the weird stuff that we later find out doesn't work right half the time, and so that's probably something that one of them probably tried out first. Though, Brant, you had a guess that it could actually have been the animator who was working on that system.
Yeah, I mean it's between the animator, Ian, or the combat designer who put that functionality in.
Oh, that's true.
I can say with confidence that the first person to see it in its form today is the animator, because I was standing over his shoulder when he did it.
Okay, there you go. So
but,
let's formally give credit to Ian Yannicka, and then we'll issue a correction later on if somebody on the team says
all right,
that it was somebody else. And then let's see here.
Here's a really important question.
Yes.
This is from user Ben P. As a relatively new player, my burning question is why everyone is left-handed when it comes to melee. And I have a very simple answer to that. It's because the way we put the camera, the view over, having all of their gear on the left side of their pack made better sense for the camera placement. And then that sort of required everybody to swing their melee weapons left-handed.
Yeah,
so,
no, that makes a lot of because you want to grab your melee weapon on the same side that your arm is on.
Yeah.
And we did just sort of have to choose one, right? Because like having all of our animations be reversible, including all of the animations that are done in tandem with a zombie, would have been kind of ridiculous. It would have been a lot of work.
Well, and our biggest point of pain for memory at this point is adding new animations, because you have to refactor all of them every time you make changes like that. And so it was a decision that we made because we had to, not because aesthetically we find left-handed melee more pleasing, right?
Yeah, totally.
So there was one.
The lore could be that only zombies are right-handed, so you know,
yeah,
if you're left-handed,
immunity to the zombie plague comes from being left-handed. Totally, that makes sense. Yeah.
There's one that I wanted to answer that was early on, and I don't know if we tossed it out there, but somebody asked if we would ever get an opportunity to, in SOD 2, to have alternate ways of getting prestige. And since we're kind of talking about the future, I'll just say, if I have my druthers, yes.
Yeah, it's hard to make promises about specific things like that in case something changes in our plans, but we've known like
that's
from
why
the beginning.
I qualified
We designed Prestige specifically with the when we first suggested the idea when we were developing Daybreak. We specifically thought, oh, this is a very useful thing to add to the game because we could use it for other things later, and then we never did. But we did design it with that in mind as a possibility, and so it's not crazy to guess that we might still use it that way sometime in the future. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just reply to Abra's comment that she guesses she would end up a zombie. Abra, I play with you every week. You save my butt every week. You're fine. You're gonna be just fine.
So we did get a question early on from Artemisian86, who wants to know, what does the team consider to be the best features or updates they've added to the game since launch? Mine, talking for Artemisian, are Plague Territory, and they're looking forward to the upcoming Infestations and Forever Communities update. So for me, Artemisian actually kind of nailed it on the head for my favorite stuff. Like, I'm just so amazed by the fact that we get this opportunity to look at systems of the game that already exist and go through and revise them and do new versions of them. That based on the way we've seen players playing and the way that we've been playing the game ourselves for the past 4 years. Like getting to go back and say, okay, now that I know what this is like, here's how this system should really work. It's such an unmissable opportunity, such an unbelievable thing to get to do. That has to be my favorite thing. And so it's a lot of the stuff we're doing right now or that we've just recently done that I'm into. Joe, what was some of your favorite stuff that we've done?
So probably the first thing that I really liked was update 7, way back when. That was when we added Dread and Nightmare. We called it the Choose Your Own Apocalypse update. And it basically sort of like paved the way for other things. Now we had quite a few people who complained that the game was too hard. And we often had like data proving that out, and we formed a team. I think we literally called them the Green Team, and they developed a Green Zone. And as part of our Green Zone changes, since we already had 3 difficulty levels, they added the difficulty sliders. So between the difficulty sliders and the update 7, that eventually leads to lethal. But without those, I don't think we ever get the way that I really like to play the game into the game. So
yeah, like I know I've got a community that plays this Dread Green across the 3 difficulty levels. So like the combat is Dread, but then all the resource related stuff and community management stuff is green, which means I get, for instance, zillions of plague samples every time I we fire off a plague heart. Which is great, and that's something that like customizing that experience for myself is something we couldn't have done before the difficulty sliders came in. So yeah, that's a good one.
My answer to that question is primarily the quality of life updates, like allowing people to change outfits, and then most of all for me, the massive update Dan Mode did to our cars, like the handling, the driving. Everything he did about the car update is one of my favorite things that's ever happened to State of Decay 2.
Like, for instance, this beautiful moment of vehicle physics that we just saw.
Well, I mean, yeah, we added real-world physics to all of our car interactions.
Yeah, nothing untoward ever happens. Like, you could just totally sit in the back of a car that flips itself like that.
All of our physics were mocapped. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So this vehicle was actually the first vehicle that Dan Mode was working on, sort of tuning to the new standard that we were setting. And we use this vehicle as sort of one of the rewards in the anniversary pack. So that's the bounty pack that's active this month. And so if you want to go out and get it, you can with Cash Beaumont. But yeah, he started with this car and then he worked his way through all of the vehicles. And I remember one of my favorite sort of test-related moments was trying out Dan's changes. I recorded myself driving through and trying to do all of the tricks I wanted to do with the vehicle using the new tuning that Dan had and then giving him feedback. And it was one of the most fun times I ever had evaluating a feature internally before it went live. It was really, really fun.
Your VO on that video was a lot of fun to watch too.
Should I share that at some point? I don't know.
I think it might be fun because you were like it was the joy of discovery for you was palpable.
I was having way too much fun, like trying to do like skidding around corners and stuff like that. Stuff that like my instinct always tells me in a video game I should be able to do. I was just trying it all out, and literally everything I wanted to do worked, and it was just blowing my mind. So I was having a great time. We're running low on time. I should ask the last question that Heather collected for us, which is, what was a funny or memorable aspect of development? This is coming from Unknown Division. So the one that I thought of when I read this question was, so earlier on, Brant was talking about the process of streaming the levels in. So our levels are actually, this map is actually divided up into a grid It's like 8 squares on a side or something like that. And each of those pieces of a grid is effectively its own level, and they're all stitched together. And you only have like 9 of them loaded, like the one you're in, and then all the neighboring ones loaded at any given time. And so one of the tough technical problems for us to overcome early on was when you're playing in multiplayer, making sure that everyone was streaming in the same levels at the same time, at the right time. And so we did some multiplayer tests internally early on where we would be like doing something like this, where I'm like riding around in a car with Joe, and because of some weird miscommunication between the host and the client, we would drive into an area where it had not streamed in yet. But the fun thing is that the roads are streamed in all the time. The roads are really critical for things like pathfinding and stuff like that. So the roads are always there. And so what it did was it turned the game into basically the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart, because we would have no level loaded around us, but we would still have the road that we were driving on. So we had to like very carefully drive on the road and not fall off at either of the sides, because then we would just fall into oblivion forever. So discovering that during a multiplayer test was probably one of my favorite moments. You guys have any you want to add before we wrap up?
Joe, go ahead.
Mine was probably when we were first starting to tune Lethal, or when we were doing some other, maybe not even first, but when Geoffrey and I first started working together to tune or retune Lethal. I don't remember which one it was.
Let's head back home while we're talking.
And so I was like, no, didn't die, didn't lose anybody. And Geoffrey would tune it harder. Didn't lose anybody. Geoffrey would tune it harder. And then I think one day he just got frustrated and he tuned it all the way up. And I was like, yeah, I almost lost my entire community. He's like, okay, so we're finally close to where it should be then.
So killing Joe was basically my standard for whether it was difficult enough. If I could kill Joe, then it was good enough.
Yeah.
That'll be the name of our SOD movie, is called Killing Joe.
Killing Joe, yeah.
how Undead Labs made State of Decay 2's Lethal Zone.
My favorite moment is community related, because I love our community more than anything else about this game. We were snowed out of the Boston airport when we were going to PAX East, and we landed the day of the start of PAX. We were late, and our community manager at the time put out a call to local people, local fans, to come run our booth for us. And they did. They came out, they ran our booth, they showed the game, and nobody really, nobody knew the difference. Like, they were just excited to be a part of it, and they were very knowledgeable about State of Decay, and they just did it for us. So that was my favorite moment of all.
Honestly, I can't think of a better one to end on. I'm really grateful for all the folks who, contributed questions, who answered Heather's call. I think we had some, you prodded us to have some really interesting discussions on this stream, and so I really appreciate it. Everything this audience has been doing for us. I mean, again, getting to develop a game for 4 years after its release, which is almost as much time as we spent prior to release, that's ridiculous. Almost no one gets to do that, and it's because you all have been supporting this game. Like, we're supporting it up from one end, but you're all supporting it from the other end, and this only works if we're both there. So massive thank you to our community for everything that they've been contributing to this entire process. Okay, so we're about out of time. We've got a couple of minor things to go through. So luckily we've got a Haven device in this base, as you can see over my shoulder there, so I can switch to another view and not worry too much that I'm going to get killed. We are running a contest right now. Artist Cealaigh Molden has sort of created some a piece of art that she's giving away on her Twitter feed, and so we just wanted to highlight this for you folks. We are going to link both in the chat and in the description of this video once it becomes a YouTube video. We're going to link to Cealaigh's tweet that she made with this piece of art. If you retweet that tweet, if you follow Cealaigh, which is C Molden Fine Art on Twitter, and if you follow our both of our feeds on Twitter, then you'll be entered automatically into a giveaway for this physical piece of art. So this is actually like a thing. She didn't make this using Photoshop or something. This is an actual piece of art that she drew on a literal piece of paper, and it's so special and rare that it feels like something that people should check out. So please go out there, track her down on Twitter, follow her, and follow us, and enter into this giveaway. We'd really love to open this widely to as many people as possible. And let's quickly, because a lot of you might have joined late, let me just quickly go over the things that we talked about at the very beginning of the of this before we close things up. Our summer roadmap. This month, Hotfix 29.2 with some quality of life updates is going to land. Also this month in May, the PTR is going to get an update that includes forever communities. And so you can try out all the new features with the legacy, you know, with the new updates to the legacy pool, to the supply locker, all of that stuff. That's coming to the PTR on Steam very soon. In July, that's when update 30 is going to land with forever communities. And then later on, we don't know exactly which month, but later on, hopefully fairly soon, the Infestations update 31 is going to launch. So that's what we know. When it comes to Hotfix 29.2, that includes us unblocking a broken mission about a feral. It includes updating the credits to include our friend Jeff Tuffley, who we owe a lot to. It fixes the name on Lundegard Lumbermill so that it's not different names all over the UI. And it also fixes a bunch of missing VO that people have been reporting, mostly in Trumbull Valley, but also in other parts of the game. So that's what's going on in the future of State of Decay 2. Let me just, real quick, say thank you to my co-host, Brant Fitzgerald. Thank you so much for being here today and also just being here throughout the life of our stream and all of the times that we've, you know, communicated with our community. You've always been there front and center, and it's made a massive difference. Thank you so much, Brant.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to continue to haunt this show once in a while.
You are indispensable. As is Joe Swarner. Joe, thank you so much for everything you've done, both as a consumer advocate and as a designer on this game, and as just one of our public faces. We're really lucky to have you.
Well, honestly, I feel lucky to work here every day. The folks that I work with and the folks out there in the community, you make this all worthwhile, and I really look forward to continuing to improve the game for you. It means a lot to me, and y'all mean a lot to me, so thanks.
And with that, we are out. So Joe is going to be the host of our next stream. That's going to happen on Friday, May 20th. That's an unusual day for us. Usually we do these on Monday, but we wanted to do it a little bit closer to our actual anniversary. And so Joe is going to be hosting an anniversary celebration, celebrating 4 years of State of Decay 2. So come and join us on that date. And with that, we're out of here. In 20 seconds. You should click on this stuff that appears on the screen, though, if you're watching this later on YouTube.
I'm clicking the crap out of it and nothing's happening.
There's no stuff yet. I got to add this stuff. I got to spend
the
next hour.
Wait, I can't just click on the thing now.
You can click on the cake. I guess maybe you'll get cake.